Between the hiring of Kenyatta Watson as the new GM and the new letter by Blake James to increase funding for this program, this has been the most exciting 24 hours of Boston College football in the last decade.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black. I'm the host of Locked On Boston College and the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, details, and analysis on your Eagles, you are in the right spot. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. On today's show, we're going to start looking at the transfer portal and some big news. Let's talk about the portal. First real positional problem that's come up. We're going to look at where that is at with some news that came out today. Bill O'Brien is back. No surprise there, but we'll talk about what that means because it came out of a letter where Blake James releases some big financial news, and I'll explain what that means for the future of the program in just a moment. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So let's kick it off with the biggest news of the day. Blake James speaks. Now, the biggest news of this offseason, actually football season, while BC was struggling on the football field, going 2-10, Blake James had been silent. We had not heard a single thing from BC's athletic director, and that changed on Tuesday. And I got to say, Blake James, he released an email to season ticket holders, fans, anyone on the listserv or whatever. This hits it right out of the park. This is exactly what we needed to hear. So let me tell you what it talked about. First of all, he talked about how upset he was and that he disappointed with the 2025 season. I think we all were that way, Blake. And I agree with him. I'm glad he said it. It was not up to the standards of what Boston College football should be at. He also said that Bill O'Brien is the future of BC football. Again, kind of agree with that too. I think he's the right coach right now for BC football. But that's not what we're going to get into. He said, and I want to read this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I also realize that Boston College must respond to major changes taking place in intercollegiate athletics, including the House legal settlement, which created a framework through which colleges and universities may directly share revenue with House athletes. While our athletics program participated in revenue sharing this past year, effective immediately, it will increase its commitment to the maximum permissible level, putting it in line with our autonomy for conference peers. The university is committed to supporting football with the resources necessary to compete while maintaining its long-standing academic and ethical standards. Oh, yes, that is what every Boston College person and fan needs to hear. Boston College is going to put the money into this program. I had heard buzz, and this confirms it, that BC with the revenue sharing, BC didn't hit their maximum cap this year. That is disappointing. You should have done that. But the fact, I'll take it 1 year, that they're doing it next year means a lot because the fact that they notice that they need to fix it now is going to make a huge impact for the 2026 season, and this is why. If they have the maximum amount, they are now on the same playing field as most other schools. There will be a little bit of that NIL stuff, but the NIL stuff is not as big as you think it is unless you're a powerhouse program. Right now, the rev sharing is becoming I think the biggest piece for most schools. So you're looking at getting yourself on footing of schools that are already doing this and doing it successfully, like Duke, like Georgia Tech. I mean, they look terrible this year, but I think that they're going in the right direction. Syracuse, like Virginia, all smaller schools that are not power schools that are doing this right. And BC is going to have that money, and that is going to be critical in the portal where BC needs to do a lot. you have to make a lot of moves in the portal this offseason, because especially on that defensive side of the ball, because you need to bring in more depth, more talent, because it's missing all over the place. So this is big. This is showing BC. This is for every folk out there that's been saying Boston College isn't taking football seriously. Boston College should go to the Patriot League. Boston College should drop football. All of that nonsense that we've been hearing out of fans for the last 3 or 4 months. I hate that stuff. I think it's stupid. It's not even a conversation starter. It's just dumb. This should silence that, because guess what? The Patriot League is not putting, I think it's $20.5 million into the athletes' hands. They're not doing that. BC is. This is important. This is not the only thing that Blake James said in this. He also said to meet, so he talked about, and this was interesting, he announces the hiring of Kenyatta Watson, which we knew was coming, to support roster management, player recruitment and development, and general program oversight. He makes it sound like it's most of a general. He says it makes it sound like there hasn't been a general manager, which there has. Spencer Dickow was the general manager this season, but that's, I mean, Kenyatta Watson is a big step financially in another direction, because he's a big deal. And then he says this, and this will wrap up this conversation. To meet the resource requirements of this new moment for BC football, philanthropic support will be critical. I am pleased to announce that Boston College has received a $50 million challenge to match on a one-to-one basis over the next 7 years. New endowment gifts for athletic scholarships and operational costs like travel, nutrition, and medical care. Details about this extraordinary commitment will be coming in days. This university intends to launch a special fundraising effort separate from its existing Soaring Higher campaign to meet not only the $50 million match, but to add it to it and raise even more endowment to support BC athletics. Money, money, money. That is very vague. I'm going to be honest, I don't even know what half of that means, because I think they leave it that way. This is looking at, and I don't know if it's year to year. It says over the next 5 to 7 years. I think they're looking to make it $50 million a year, which hopefully that is all going to football, because that's the money sport. But this is also big, because if they're endowing more scholarships, more money can go to coaching, more money can go to staffing, money can go to sorts of other things that BC needs and that they don't have. We've had people on our show that are like, Mitch has been on here saying that you need enough extra coaches out there. That costs money. Well, guess what? Now you have more money to spend, and you can get more guys out there that can watch film, that can, recruit, all that good stuff. That is critical. This is the money that BC needs. This is showing Boston College is finally willing to become big boy football. We've been complaining about it. We've been crying about it for decades. It's here. And I don't know if this is Father Jack, if this is because Father Leahy is out the door, but this is so refreshing. I haven't felt this excited between this and Kenyatta Watson about BC football in years. I mean, I felt pretty excited when Bill O'Brien got here, but this piece, the structural piece, is what should get you excited, because that is what Bill O'Brien needs to be successful. And if he's not successful, the next coach will be successful with it, because you need to pump in money to make money. And BC is showing that they finally understand it. And believe me, hopefully this will also continue with basketball. And we'll talk about that at another point. But for football, the money marquee sport, this is huge. And hopefully this will immediately have impact on BC football when it comes to this offseason, especially in the transfer portal, but looking ahead at recruiting. When you get a guy like Kenyatta Watson out there recruiting for you, that's a big deal. When you have him working the portal for you, that's a big deal too. And when you have the money to back it, that completes the circle. That's what I like. And when I think of all this, when I think of all this good news, I think back to my favorite TV show, The Sopranos. And I know this was pulled from, I think it was Godfather 2, But I think of Silvio Dante, and he used to do this all the time on different episodes. And he would go, just when I was out, they pulled me back in. That's what BC football feels like right now. After a 2-10 season, I'm more excited for 2026 and beyond than ever before. Now, in our second segment, there was more in this because they announced that a certain coach is coming back. I'll explain what that looks like in just a moment. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and moneyline adjustments instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. I was watching that Patriots game last night. Travion Henry started to get really hot. You can get that action right there. And you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. Listen, I love watching myself some NBA and NFL football, but you know what's even more fun? When you have some live action going on FanDuel. So if you're want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long with FanDuel. The game moves fast, and so can you. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every single day. And if you're an everydayer, thank you so much. You mean so much to me, and I appreciate all of you who have made us part of your daily routine. Now, we're talking about this email from Blake James and how he really did nail this. This was exactly what Boston College Nation needed after a 2-10 season where everything felt down, where you were questioning why you should still be a Boston College fan, why you even waste your time on a Saturday. The school showed you that they heard what you said and they have an action plan to do it. You know, you could go out there. This email could go out and all it could say is, we understand that you're upset. We're driven to do things differently next year. And I honestly would say, you know what, BC? I've heard that before, and you haven't done anything about it. But what I loved about this email, what made it different for me, and why I liked how Blake James hit this, was that he had action steps on here. That it wasn't just bluster. It wasn't just, we're doing a few, we understand you. We're going to change some things, but doesn't explain anything. It explains everything what they're doing. Now, the $50 million doesn't explain exactly what they're doing, but hey, you got me at $50 million. That is what I wanted to hear. The money piece. When you hear about Michigan State making more putting more money, or Florida State or Wisconsin, all of them adding these different funds to their money, to their war chest, you say to yourself, well, there's BC falling behind again. That's not the case here. And the big piece of all of this, and it wasn't really a surprise to per se, but it still was part of the email, was that Blake James does confirm that Bill O'Brien is coming back next year. I thought his job was completely safe. Beating Syracuse really solidified it for me. You can't fire a head. I know 2-10 stinks. 1-11 would have been catastrophic, but you can't fire him after this season. You just 2 seasons. You can't. Like last year, it was good, but it wasn't anything special. This year was a disaster. But anyone can look at the season and understand specifically the defense and say to yourself, okay, they hit a run of injuries that I don't think any school could survive. So you can't just fire him for that. You can hold his feet to the fire and say, look, if this happens again, but you can't fire him for that. Like, he lost. I'm not going to go over it, but you know the defense. Well, maybe you're new, so maybe I should say it. 2 starting cornerbacks, the starting linebacker, like 5 defensive tackles, multiple depth guys everywhere. Like, you lost your 2 starting cornerbacks when Amari Jackson finally comes back, your defense all of a sudden looks good again. This is not on him. Now, there's things that definitely need to be changed, whether it's staffing, how he addressed the portal. There's things he has to look at. But I was on the fire Bill O'Brien bandwagon. I just think that would have set BC back even more. And looking at the carousel, who are you going to get? AJ, they're going to go get Bob Chesney. No, he ended up in the Big Ten. So you had no chance at that. I mean, I love Bob Chesney, but he's going to go out to UCLA, and he'll probably get poached from them in a couple years too. So, you know what? Bill O'Brien now has his marching orders. Bill O'Brien knows, I'm sure, what he needs to adjust. He, as a leader, as someone who has done this for years, I'm sure has a brain and people around him to systemically look at what is working and what is not working and what failed this year and how do we address that. Was there people, that caused the transfer portal class to be not what it needs to be? Were there things within the system that didn't work so that didn't be there? Did they not have the money? How are they going to fix that? All of these things are big. I even looked to some things that and I don't know the details on this, but I've heard buzz that they got to Stanford on Friday for a Friday night for a Saturday game. I hope that the school can fix that. I hope Father Jack is like, yeah, that's okay if you leave on Thursday. Those types of things. But you know what? Maybe the shine has come off of Bill O'Brien for many of you. I get that. And that's fair to say. But I think this offseason, he's got a lot that he can do. And to start it off the way things have gone is a perfect start to regain some faith and that he knows the direction that the school needs to go. To bring in Kenyatta Watson, to get, hopefully, I would put it on. I really feel strongly that the coaching staff is not going to be the same next year. That we'll probably be hearing some news about that. I don't know, next couple of weeks. Tomorrow's National Signing Day, so you'll probably, not hear it tomorrow because they're not going to do it during National Signing Day. But maybe in a couple of weeks you'll hear, next week you'll hear some stuff. But I think this is the right move. You have your coach. It was just 2 years ago that everybody was pumped. I mean, not everybody, but most people were pumped about Bill O'Brien coming here. That they were, that you lost Jeff Hafley, but you had the coach that you were hoping for fall in your lap. 2-10 can obviously hurt people's views on a coach and think differently about what he can and can't do. But you also kind of owe it to him to work through this. If he can build himself out of this, that shows you that he's got a long-term future here. If he can't, well, then you know your answer, right? Well, in our final segment, I want to talk to you about the portal. It's not open yet, but people are declaring, and BC has a bunch, and I'll explain why one position is really starting to worry me, and it's December 2nd. I'll explain why in just a moment. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black, Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network, and the host of this great podcast. Thank you to everyone who makes Boston College your first listen every day. And thank you all. We've had some great shows so far this week. If you have not already checked them out, go back on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. With the season done, you can get all sorts of great stuff. You can binge my show. How cool would that be? And if you have gotten that, if you're listening on YouTube and you've started getting those YouTube year in reviews, and you're like a big listener of Locked On BC, find me on Twitter at Locked On BC and tag me with the caption of that. Take a screenshot. I'd love to see it. I love hearing that. Get a couple of those every year, and I'd love to get a few more of those. So just shoot it to me on Twitter. I'd love to hear it. Now, the portal, BC has been quiet for the first couple of days. No names have been entered, and I believe a lot of times that's because they're doing exit interviews with all the players to kind of talk about how the season went and their view of where things are going. That's usually where, after they meet with their positional coaches or with Bill, where players enter the portal. And so it made sense that Tuesday was the first day, because I'm assuming they had meetings yesterday, where BC players started entering the portal. The first name that we heard was Ashton McShane. He didn't play at all this year. Well, he played like 3 games, but like limited snaps. Kind of a real surprise that he entered the portal. Not into the portal, that he just never showed up, because he played quite a bit last year after Amari Jackson got hurt. And I thought of him as a guy that could, be a regular contributor at cornerback. He got hurt and then disappeared. So he's gone. He's from Texas. I'm not sure where he'll end up. But the next 2 were more worrisome, I would say. And that is Jason Hewlett, who was the transfer from Michigan who joined the team in April. I can remember him just committing. It feels like it was just yesterday. He's gone. He's entering the portal. He did nothing this year. Like, this was a big surprise for me, because when Bam Crouch got hurt, I thought Hewlett would be the guy that would jump in. He didn't. He played special teams, and that was about it. And it was just kind of a disappointment. Like, he just didn't do anything. So he's gone. And then the big one, the one that I don't know if surprised me based off of what happened this year, was Bam. Bam Crouch is in the portal. Now, he played 4 games this year, and he was hurt. He then showed up like he was out all year, but then played in the Notre Dame game and played 4 games. I don't know what he and Skeet, both of them, Jaden Skeet, both just played the Notre Dame game. I don't know what that was about, but he's gone too. And this puts, and I'm not going to get into him and just what that means, but the loss of Hewlett, the loss of Bam, in addition to Owen Gowan graduating, and I believe Bryce Steele graduates, this is causing a big problem, because BC's linebacker room is scary thin at this point. You have, going into next year, Palahe Fa'oa, who we saw play 1 game. You have Griffin Collins, Zachary Thomas, and Kamori Dixon. And then you got some freshmen that are coming in next year. Steve Klein and Makai Volchi. That's it. You don't have anybody that played a lot. Usually your linebackers are the guys that are like communicating, and McGowan did it a lot. We saw Cam Arnold do it a lot. They're like the leaders out there, the guys that gets everyone set. They many times have the dot. I know Bam said he didn't have that at the beginning of the year. You have that right now. I'm worried about next year. Like, I think Griffin Collins is going to be fine, but I don't know what Zachary Thomas can do. I don't know, what Corey Dixon looked like. He struggled. He got hurt a lot. This is a position you have to hit the portal. Like, there's a bunch of guys that have already entered the portal, but you need, and some of them I've already said on my site that, like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, Montrez Walker was a guy BC recruited a couple years ago from Georgia, where Kenyatta Watson's from. He's from Colorado. He played for Colorado, had all sorts of Power 4 offers. His name I'd watch for, but he hasn't played yet. It's more depth. We need guys that have played. So that's going to be like, I've seen people talking about like what positions you want to pay money for. Right now, the money positions for BC, in my eyes, are linebacker, edge rusher, offensive lineman, and then maybe defensive tackle. In that order. You don't have anybody at linebacker right now. Like, anyone that, well, I don't want to say you don't have anybody, because those, I don't know what they're going to do, but you don't have anyone established yet. Like, maybe Griffin Collins will be fine. I don't know. But I'm saying right now that I look at this depth of this room, there's not a ton of snaps that have been played. There's not a lot of guys that are upperclassmen. That worries me. So I think of this linebacker room right now, and this is day 1. Who knows what some of these other guys could do? You could have another guy enter the portal, like Fa'oa. Like, maybe he'll enter the portal, because he hasn't really done a whole lot at BC. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe he has to stay here. Not my decision. I'm just saying, like, there's all sorts of things that could happen. But that the fact that 2 of your players that have entered the portal immediately are linebackers, that worries me. And losing Bam Crouch is a big one, because I thought with his taking the red shirt this year that maybe he would be back, and that would be a nice addition because at least you'd have a player that I thought would be really explosive, but you're not. Now he's entering the portal. Maybe he there's always a chance he returns. I doubt it, but I think that's a big loss, and that's the first really big loss this year. We didn't really have last year. I mean, Ryan Turner was your biggest one, and he was not that big. This is a big one. I mean, a bigger one. So BC's going to have to address that in the portal. That's going to be the first big piece for the Eagles. How are they going to address this linebacker room? Because they played poorly this year. You lost most of whoever was there, which is honestly, other than Bam, okay, because maybe you can increase the players, but this is where that change is going to have to happen. Do they have the money to go out there and get linebackers that can play? That's $1 million question, and I don't have the answer for that. We'll talk more on tomorrow's show, where we'll get into the LSU BC basketball game. I said it was going to be today, but I had the days wrong. And then we have more, and maybe we'll have a little surprise. I don't know. We'll talk about it. Thank you for following. You can check me out on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Facebook and Instagram. You can also see me on TikTok and all other apps. Check me out on Eagle Insider right now. You can get inside, get all that VIP access. Good deal right now. Check that out on Eagle Insider. And I'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.